Welcome back to the channel, guys, and today we have another video for you. It is quite an unfortunate series of events, though. Today was just one of those days where no matter how well I race, how well I qualified, I seemed to get hit by other players into turn 1, 2, whatever it may be. It didn't matter. I was getting annihilated and forced to retire out of a lot of races. So let's talk about racing etiquette, okay? I just want to put this out there for anyone watching this. It doesn't matter whether you are into sim racing currently, new to sim racing, or maybe you're thinking about getting into sim racing. Let's just establish something. You do not win the race at turn 1 at the start of the race, okay? Have some composure, have some patience, just take your time, survive. You're not going to win in the first corner, because what happens is those people who do that, they take everyone else out. You ruin your race, you make people upset. As you can see, I'm upset about it, talking about it. And it's very frustrating for sim racing, because it's not like other games where people spend a lot of time practicing to get better lap times or to be more efficient with their driving. And then you actually get to the race, and then you have someone who's just careless and goes in and ruins it for everyone else. It doesn't make it for a good time. But that's just my rant. That's just my 2 cents. No matter what, when you're going into turn 1 at the start of the race, just take your time. Don't dive bomb, and just understand you're going to be on cold tires. You're going to be on cold brakes. You need to warm those up before you start pushing the car. All right? So without further ado, we're going to get right into the action. There are going to be 2 races here, one at Le Mans, one at Coda, and you are going to see me have some moments where I just absolutely lose control. No audio, but you will be able to visually see me just absolutely losing it, and it is quite funny looking back at it. So again, let's get to it. And if you do like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel for future content. Thank you, and let's get right to it. Alrighty, guys, so we're going to get right into Le Mans to start off with. This is going to be a brief clip. This is the worst of the worst, I think, of the day. Just absolutely terrible driving. So, as you can see, we are in pole position. Now, we did not technically qualify in first place, but first place, as you can see, is starting from the pits, and that might have been the right decision, honestly, because it was chaos, absolute chaos at the start. So we're coming around the last corner, and we're about to wait for the green lights, so we're just going to react to that. And as you're going to see,
green flag.
Some people, like I said, have absolutely no patience, no intelligence, and no sense of self-awareness. So we're going in here to turn 1, and then we're slowing down to turn 2. We're giving ourselves plenty of time, get cut in, and then another guy just absolutely dive bombs and takes out like 6 people. As you can see, I am livid from my reaction, and now we are trying to safely rejoin, and I have some strong words that I'm saying. And there it goes. There goes my absurd reaction. Extremely upset. But now we're at the back of the pack. We're determined at this point to make up for those unfortunate events. But we got to be really smart, because there are clearly some reckless drivers. You can see people are already spinning out. And now there's people trying to shove us off the track, down on the main straight. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But we survived, and now we're getting behind here by Brosad, and we're getting the slipstream. So, no harm, no foul. Technically, we don't have suspension damage, we don't have aero damage, so we're able to come back. So we brake a little bit later, knowing we can get on the inside, and then we go around the bus stop, but this guy pushes us wide, so we're forced to go off track. And then I get really frustrated because it says illegal pass, please return position. However, that was an LMP3, it wasn't even the same class. So it made no sense to me that it's an illegal pass when I'm not competing against this individual and he's forcing me off the track. I don't think that makes much sense. I didn't really have much choice unless I was to completely slow down and go over to the left and let everyone else pass me. I just didn't think that made a lot of sense. But nonetheless, it's the constraints we're given within the game. Moving on, now we're down the back straight. We're getting in the slipstream. So the one thing about Le Mans, or any of you guys who may not be familiar with the track if you're not into sim racing, it is the infamous track where the long, famous endurance race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, occurs. Now, there's not really a lot of corners on this track, but it's like 8 1/4 of a mile to do one lap, roughly. And it's just a lot of long straights. Now, that may appear boring when you think about it, but when you get in the middle of an intense race and you're side by side with someone on the straightaway, it gets crazy. It's a mental game of who's going to hold their normal braking line, who's going to brake too late or brake too early. It can make for some great racing. It really can. So as you can see, we're getting into Sector 3 of the track. A lot of people are already spitting out, and we've gotten up to P19 already, which is great. And we can see another individual here. I don't know why he hit the wall, but he hits the wall somehow. Maybe his wheel disconnected. Now we're going through these long, wide, sweeping turns. And then as you can see, absolute detrimental crash. I am furious. I have no idea what happened there. That dude just decided to completely stop in the middle of the road, and then the gentleman behind him hits him, spins out, and there's nothing that I could have done to avoid that crash. So we box to go in the pits. I had hit the button to request a pit stop, thinking I'm good to go. It's like, all right, I got to repair the suspension damage because I learned my lesson from one race earlier this morning where I got suspension damage and I tried to push through. It might work in the GT3 cars, but man, in these LMPs, it's really tough. So for whatever reason, I come into the pits. Fuel cannot be removed, like whatever. Like I was coming in to fix my damage. And for whatever reason, it's not doing anything to fix my problems, and I'm furious. So at this point, I'm fed up with it. We're retiring from the race. We're just going to move on. I mean, there's just absolutely nothing that I could have done. Because of all the races today where people were taking me out and I was forced to retire, it was dropping my driver rating like crazy. And there's just nothing you can do about it. And I'm not necessarily one who's always all about chasing a higher driver rating, but when you're truly trying to focus on clean racing and being fast and having good racecraft, it does suck. Because I was at one point a silver, and now we're back to bronze 3, so I'm going to have to work a little bit to get back into silver tier driver rating. Or I shouldn't, yeah, driver rating, not safety rating. Anyways, that was the really infuriating part. Coda here, this is the new track we're in. We are going to have some moments where I lose it, but not as many. It's not as bad. We actually finished this race, and we were at least happy with that. So this is qualifying, and we are in, this should be our best lap if I'm not mistaken, or if it isn't our best lap, it's our second best lap. Coda is a wonderful track. So this track is in Austin, Texas. It's a Formula One circuit. It usually occurs in October, if I'm remembering it correctly off the top of my head. It's very technical and challenging. It throws everything at you. You have long sweeping S's, really wide high-speed corners, and then you have extremely tight hairpins at the end of long straightaways. So this track is really all about tire management. Your tires are going to heat up really fast when you're pushing the car, and you have to be careful about, as your race progresses, you need to be careful at how hard you're pushing the car, and maybe you need to back off a little bit to let the tires cool off so that you don't spin out or you don't prematurely wear your tires down. And especially depending on the length of the race. This race, for example, was going to end up being 1 hour, and theoretically, if you manage your tires well and you save fuel, you can do it all without a pit stop. But anyways, we're going to do a guide to the track. So this is the main straight. We crossed the line. We're braking at that Rolex board, the second one. Brake hard, trail brake late, pitch it in, and then these are the long S's. So we're going to keep it right here. Then we're going to pitch it into the left, going over the curb, downshift to fourth, downshift to third, hit the curbs. Oh, we're going to make sure we don't go too wide, but we're going to flip it down to second, get back to the right, pitch it in left. I didn't hit that very well. I pitched it in a little too early. Down to first gear, stay to the right, and then pitch it in and hit the apex on the left. Make a good exit out, get as much speed as you can, hit that curb over there, get out wide to the right, and we're a hard brake at that Motul, the second sign, down to first gear, pitch it in, hit that apex, go out wide, and then we let it rev freely. We're gonna go as fast as we can. This is the longest straight on the track, and towards the end of this, we're gonna have another tight left hairpin. So we're gonna brake a little bit after that third Michelin board, basically halfway between the third and the second. And we're gonna pitch it in, get out wide, make sure you're not braking too hard in these LMPs or you're gonna lock up the brakes. Go into second gear, make sure you brake a little early here. It's a tricky corner where you gotta pitch it into the left, but you make sure you're not braking completely again or you'll lock up the wheels. Keep it a little bit tight there, hit that apex, and then let it run a little wide, but not too wide. It does not benefit you going all the way out. You want to stay like in the middle 2/3 of the track there when you're going through that long sweeping right-hander. And then here's the last corner. And as you can see, we have qualified for P2, 155.49. Now, Liguili, I don't know if I'm saying that right. We'll call him Liguili. Liguili was pretty rapid. He's more than likely comfortable with this track. Again, I had absolutely no practice on this. I just jumped into qualifying, and that was that. I am relatively familiar with the track layout, which does help, but I do not have experience with this car specifically on this track. So we're adapting, but P2 is pretty solid. But the goal is going to be to try to find the pace of Liguili. I'm going to call him G Lee because Liguili, I feel like that's a tongue twister. So G Lee, you can see he gets about a second ahead of us, but we're going to try to keep up with him and maybe we can learn something from him. Where is he finding those extra 2 seconds that I wasn't in qualifying? And I'm sure that should be relatively easy to find. But we have to keep in mind, in qualifying, we had a very low amount of fuel. We only had a couple gallons. Now, we have 19.3 gallons. So we have roughly 200 pounds extra that we're carrying at the start of this race, and our tires are not warmed up yet. So we got to be a little bit more cautious, and we got to brake just a little bit earlier than what we're used to in qualifying. That's something you always need to remember, especially when you're going to these long races where you're topping the tank off completely. Your braking points are not going to be the same as they would be if you had very low amounts of fuel. So as you can see, we're keeping up with G Lee. We are right on his tail. We're maintaining anywhere from a second to 3/4 of a second. We are right on his tail. We go a little bit too far, too deep into this corner, but that's okay. We don't mind. We're going to be able to gain some speed and go into this right-hander. Oh, and that's pretty solid there. You see what I mean, though? When we're coming through this right-hander, we We don't want to get too wide to the left there. It doesn't really do you any favors, and you just lose a lot of time. That line it just takes some getting used to. It's really hard to explain. It's just a feel. You got to get a feel for it. So we're coming down the main straight again. And as you can see, G. Lee and I are in a league of our own compared to the rest of the group. So we're just going to be competing and battling with each other. Again, we're still maintaining a second with him. Our tires are getting warmed up, so we're going to be able to push through these S's just a little bit more. Back down to fourth gear, down to third, hit the curb, stay to the right, let it run out a little bit, and then we blip it down to second, pitch it over to the left again after we get over to the right, down to first gear, and we're going to stay to the right so that way we can get a good exit on the left, and boom, as fast as we can, out the exit. And we're still maintaining a second on G. Lee, not far from him at all. Break a little bit later than I would have liked to, but that's okay. We're not too far off. Not a bad corner. Now the thing about this race, it is multi-class. So if you can see on the map where like all those green dots are going around the track layout, those are the GT3 cars. And eventually at some point in this race, we will catch up to them. So I'm banking, I just need to stick with G. Lee and try to mimic what he does and learn from him. And if worst case scenario, if I don't figure it out by that time, the GT3s are going to shake things up. When you have traffic, that's going to slow everyone down, and that can really throw things into the mix. Maybe G. Lee gets taken out, maybe he gets slowed down by one of those back markers, and that'll give me the opportunity to pass him. So at this point, I'm just trying to stay with them. I'm trying to push it just a little bit more than what I'm used to, but I'm trying not to make any crazy mistakes. Just trying to remain consistent, go with my lines, and make micro adjustments. As you can see, looking at our lap times, they're virtually identical. He's like basically a tenth of a second faster than me, which, you know, a tenth over multiple laps could make up a lot of a difference, but as you can see, we're basically the same delta as him. We're making slow incremental improvements, and we're pushing the car more and more. The tires are at optimal temperatures at this point, so we are going to be able to rip it as hard as we can. Plus our tires are fresh. They're not worn down. There's one thing about an hour race compared to these short 30 and 20 minute races that I've done in the past. You don't really have to worry about tire wear unless you spin out and get a flat spot. But if you're consistent through the whole entire race, you don't have to worry about grip levels necessarily. It's pretty irrelevant. When you get into these longer form races, you definitely have to watch out for it. As time goes on, you're not going to be pushing the car the way you want to. So you have to be cognizant of the limits. Always have to be cognizant of the variability of the limits in these cars. So you can see we are still right on him. This is a good battle. I mean, we are pretty evenly matched, and right now it's just a matter of can we both stay consistent, or who stays more consistent and maybe finds a little bit of that pace. As you can see, we did not have a very good corner in that wide sweeping right-hander, and he gains about a half a second on us. So he pulls away a little bit, but we seem to reel him in just a little bit here on the last corner, but we do get a little bit of track limits, and it's not bad. It's only a quarter of a point out of 4, but I wasn't willing to slow down. I was willing to take that quarter of a point. It was not going to give us a penalty, not something to worry about. G. Lee is really finding his pace, though. At this point, it's becoming much more of a struggle to keep up with him, and I'm trying to find where he's making up that time, but he eventually is just going to slowly pull away from us. It's been good, but I'm still going to try to keep up with him because I still want to see if I can learn his lines and how I can get the pace that he's getting. Because with a full fuel load, and he's in the 155.4 was his last lap, if I remember correctly. That's pretty rock solid. With 200 pounds of fuel. That is not a small feat. Not a small feat at all. So we're back down the back straight. And as you can see, we are not too far away from catching up to the GT3s, the ones in last place. We are within maybe a lap or two before things start shaking up. But we're just not making up that difference. And he's slowly finding more and more pace than us. And we are not as consistent. I guess we say we're consistent, but there's no improvements. As you see, the rest of the pack, P3 is 13 seconds behind us. So we don't really have to worry about anyone from the back. They have nowhere close to the pace that we do. Here we go, 52 minutes into an hour-long race. It's really easy to lose your focus in these long stints, but I think the one thing that I love about endurance racing is you get into a flow state. And once you get into a nice flow state, it's like time just almost evaporates, and it's just you and the car and the track, and that's it. Everything else melts away, all your worries, and you don't think about anything else. And I think that's what I love about racing. It just focuses and demands all of your attention. You lose any ounce of focus for 1 second, and that's it. That's it. It could be the end of your race. It's all a mental game. And that's what I love about it so much. The way I like to describe racing to other people, each track is a lot like sheet music, and the car is like an instrument. And each car, you have to learn how to play the instrument, and each track you have to learn the song. But once you figure them both out, it's just magic. You learn what gear you need to be in on a certain part of the track, how many blips down, how fast you need to go. You learn like the little subtle sounds of the engine, of when you need to shift and when you need to downshift. It becomes a point where it feels like art. And when you learn it and master it, it's just like learning how to almost play as what I imagine the guitar, the flute, cello, whatever it may be. That's what's so magical about it. Each car has its own personality, and each track has its own personality. So as you can see, end rant, we are catching up to the GT3s. So G Lee is roughly 4 seconds ahead of us. He's not really slowing down. These GT3s are not slowing him up. They're slowing us up a little bit, but we're getting by him pretty good. There's certain sectors of this track you really don't want to get stuck behind these GT3s, and one of them is this part specifically, the S's. There's only a couple parts of it where you can get by safely, and if you don't, you're just kind of stuck behind them, and you lose so much time. So we were hoping that maybe we'd get lucky and G Lee would get stuck behind these GT3s in less than ideal spots. As you can see, the speed differential is quite drastic compared to these LMP2s. And we're just flying by them on the straights. It's almost like they're at a standstill. But you really got to be careful and watch out for where they brake and how they turn into these corners. You really need to be careful. One of the things about racing, even though I get really upset about people crashing me, and sometimes it really is not your fault, but it is also a skill to learn how to avoid those situations and how to decrease your probability of getting absolutely annihilated. Like, for example, if I would have dive bombed here on the inside of this Lexus, he was obviously not paying attention, and he more than likely would have just hit me on the side and taken us both out, or possibly just me out. If I was not thinking about that, that's it. That's probably your race. Or it could be your race, depending on how much damage, the extent of the damage. So always keep that in mind when you're a new racer. Avoiding collisions, whether they're your fault or not, is still a skill. Just being aware of what could potentially happen. You have to be able to make those decisions in a split second. Because if you don't, it can be disastrous for everyone. So Geely is pulling away slowly but surely. Now he's up to like 5.5 seconds. We're just not finding the time through racing through this traffic at the moment. We're getting through it relatively efficiently, but he's getting through it even faster. And he must be coming across them at more ideal times than I was, because as you can see, I was coming across these guys right into these hairpins, right in the middle of the S's, where I'm just losing so much time. I mean, right there, not being able to go out as wide as I want and get on the throttle, I mean, that's easily 3/4, or I shouldn't say 3/4, but like 3 to 4/10 of a second. And it all adds up. It all adds up really quickly. So getting by traffic as efficiently as possible in these multi-class races is crucial to maintaining your gap with your competitors. So as you can see, we have a line of 4 GT3s plus another train of 2. Luckily, we're going to be able to just pass a lot of these guys on the straightaway, just from our straight line speed. But nonetheless, we're still going to have to battle some of these guys through the S's, and this is going to be a really unideal time to go into this tight hairpin on turn 1 with this Mercedes right here. That is an awful line, but it is the line we are going to be forced to take so that we're not potentially bumping into the Mercedes. As you can see through the S's, like, I'm just forced to slow down, and there's nothing I can do, so I decided to push on the outside. I'm right next to that Aston, but I'm not going to cut on the inside of this BMW, because as you can see, he took that corner. But I'm going to get on the inside. I'm clearly ahead, and he just bumps right into me. Ladies and gentlemen, if that gentleman took me out right then and there, I would have been quite livid. I really would have. I mean, the GT3s, their job when it comes to these multi-class races, they have to hold a predictable line. And the LMP2s, it is their job to make sure you pass safely. Now I was, and I made it very well known, like, hey, I'm beside you. This is not a dive bomb. I am side by side with you. I'm taking the inside. And he just disregards, and he drives his racing line like he normally would if I wasn't there. Yeah, you can't do that either. So, you know, there's a little bit of responsibility on the GT3s as well. Now, this is where we have an absolute meltdown. So again, the same situation. I take the outside. I am clearly side by side with this man, and he spins me out, and I freak out. My blood pressure is skyrocketing. It's probably like 2,000 over 1,500, and I'm grimacing. I don't get it. I didn't get that. Why? I was clearly side by side with you for like 2 whole seconds. I was getting ahead of you, and then you turn into me, right into my rears, and spin me out. I don't get that. And now I have suspension damage, so I was forced to pit. As you can see, we're pulling to the pits, and we have to repair the damage. And at this point, I was going to try to fuel save, but I decided to top it off so I could just push it for the rest of the race. So now, where we were in P2, like a very comfortable P2, we are forced down to eventually P5. So, having said that, one thing we do know is we have way more pace than the guys that were behind us. Drastically different pace than them. So there was still hope. I could catch up to these guys. And they're going to have to fuel save and or pit if they didn't think about their fuel strategy. So there is still a chance I could get back into P2 despite there being 28 minutes left in this race. And P2 is over a minute away from us. Now, when I pitted, because of that spin out, I did have a flat spot, so I decided to go to my used tires from qualifying. They were a little bit worn, but they were still really good tires. Now, the problem is, I come out of the pits, they're cold tires, so now I have to be cognizant of my braking points and how I turn. And as you can see, I forgot that for a moment going into that corner. Go way deep, off track, and I'm forced to get back in line. No problem. Didn't hurt anyone, didn't run anyone, but just have to remind myself, okay, cold tires, cold tires. I need to complete at least 2 laps, keeping it under the normal limit before I can start really pushing it. So as you can see, we're right behind P4, Patera. He's not too far away from us. He's like, oh, he looks like he might have spun out. So he's like 6 seconds ahead of us. So we know we're going to be able to push this guy and be in competition with him relatively soon. And again, we still have this GT3 traffic and we got to be careful. At this point, I'm becoming more and more paranoid about the back markers after that incident. And, you know, the guy did eventually apologize in the chat later. I purposely don't allow chat notifications while I race because then I'll get way too distracted. But he did apologize, and, you know, I get it. Heat of the moment, sometimes we get upset in racing, but racing incidents do happen every now and then, and it's not a malicious act always. So I always appreciate that when people do apologize and own up to their mistakes. You know, we all do it. I still make mistakes. I've hit people and I felt terrible about it. So I guess moral of the story, if you are a sim racer or you're getting into it, if you hit someone, just apologize and explain that it's your fault, blah, blah, blah. Most people you usually be forgiving if you apologize. Some people, no matter what you say, they're going to freak out and threaten to report you and ban you. But just be a genuine guy and be kind and respect others' race. That's all. I think that's really what sim racers ask, because not everyone's going to be the fastest. Not everyone's going to be a Max Verstappen. But I think all people want is a nice, clean, hard race. We all understand incidents will occur, but we just want to all be fair. So as you can see, Patera had a lock up there on the previous corner. Now we're right on his tail. We got to get past this Lexus though into this right sweeping hander. So he's going to allow us to take the inside, which I was not expecting, but it does help us get more speed. Now we have this Porsche going into the left-hander in the second last corner. Not too terrible timing. We're able to get past him, but we're not going to be able to get as wide as we want into this corner, so we're going to have to come in really slow, go out wide as fast as we can, and we're right back in this race. Gaining speed down the main straight, and hoping we can catch up to him here on the S's, pitch it in, get back on the throttle, and we are right on Patera's tail. But this Lexus could potentially pose a problem for us. So we're going to go take on the right side. Oh, we go slightly off the track, but it doesn't invalidate or give us a warning, which is a good thing. I'm actually shocked I didn't get a warning after that. But maybe it's not technically invalidating your lap. Maybe that's one of those secrets that I need to learn on this track. So Patera's a second ahead of us at this point. If we can have a good corner here into this hairpin, we might be able to get into the slipstream. As you can see, he goes way wide off the track, and that's going to give us the opportunity to gain more speed down the back straight here. We are within the grasp to get P4. But a podium is a long way away. I mean, 42 seconds from Dossel, and that's a substantial feat. It's going to require a mistake or two happening from him. And even from P2, honestly, at this point. Or like I said, I'm hoping that they pit or they have a awful fuel strategy and they are really babying their cars to try to make it work. So you can see we're going to take the outside, and I have absolutely no idea what Patera was thinking there. But he hits that BMW, more than likely gives him body damage and suspension damage. I would be furious if I were the BMW there. But Patera makes a pretty reckless mistake there. But we are back into P4 now. We're moving past this BMW, and now we have quite an uphill battle. 40 seconds to find in 22 and a half minutes. How are we going to do it? Well, as we move forward, about 10 minutes ahead, Dossel is making lots of mistakes, and now he is only 7 seconds away. And we're getting really consistent with our lap times. We're holding like a 156. Not the best scenario, but it's pretty good for given the race and all the traffic that we're having to fight. It's unrealistic to expect to post 154s once you get to the point of the race where you're consistently coming across these back markers, these GT3 cars. So this is a really tough situation. Got to get by this Lexus. Going to take the inside, and luckily he's aware of us and he's leaving us room, thank goodness. And we're able to gain a lot more speed through the right-hand sweeping corner here towards the third sector. 5.5 seconds now, we are already down. And we got a yellow flag. Don't see what it's coming from. I don't see anyone spun out off the track, but I was just trying to be aware to make sure that we didn't have to avoid someone through mid-corner where we wouldn't see them. So we can see we posted a 157.3. Dossel is dropping like crazy. He must have spun out in the last corner, hence the yellow flag. Going into turn 1. And for a second, I thought that was P3 off to the side and left off the track, but Dossel had made it through. But we're gaining on him. We are only 3.25 seconds away. So we're going to really try to nail the S's. We're going to go on the outside of the Lexus on the left. We can get way more speed, get past him. Now we're just going to focus on a good exit here. There's lots of traffic slowing Dossel down, so we should have absolutely no problem passing him and catching up to him. He is really slowed down, so we're going to be right there in the slipstream on the main straight with him. But boy, we have the BMW here to worry about, and in this tight right corner, he's just kind of holding his normal line, which I guess is the right thing to do on his part. But he did slow us down a little bit there, but nonetheless, we're in the slipstream of Dossel. We're getting past him. And ladies and gentlemen, we are in a podium position once again. We have regained our podium back. Now, we were originally in second place, but Mancebo is 30 seconds ahead. That is, again, an astounding feat to accomplish when we have 9.5 minutes left. Realistically, we're probably not going to catch him, but his lap times are really bad. I mean, you can see he was posting almost a 2:05 when a bad lap for us was probably like a 1:59, and that's because we were fighting traffic. So we definitely have the pace, but it's going to require us to have those consistent laps and maybe him making a mistake. Now, Geely, he's way too far ahead. He's made no mistakes during this race. He's been driving absolutely flawlessly in terms of his pace and consistency, strategy. It's just no way. After that guy crashed us, it was impossible for us to compete. But P2 was still a possibility. So we moved further ahead with basically 5 minutes left of this race. And Mancebo he is 3 seconds ahead of us. Now, it was really weird because his delta said like half a second there, and then it jumped up to over 3 seconds. Now, I suspected at this point he might be having connectivity issues or issues with the server. Now, that makes me nervous, and you're going to see why. When people have connection issues, they'll like disappear to avoid collisions, but then they'll appear again, and they could still possibly bump into you despite them lagging in Le Mans Ultimate trying to use their like detection of collisions that could happen. So as you can see here, he just reappears in front of us, and while you don't really see it on my face, but I'm getting quite nervous because this could absolutely ruin a race. He disappears, and then all of a sudden he pops on the screen again. He is right there on the left. I am so nervous. There's one more corner that I'm really worried. He disappears again on our radar map. I don't know where he's at. Luckily, he ends up pretty far away. Thank God that we're still alive. And we are in P2, ladies and gentlemen. 3 minutes left of this race. All we have to do is remain consistent. That's all we have to do. Because we're not going to catch up to G. Lee unless he crashes and forces himself to retire, but that's just not the case. So we move ahead. End of the last lap. We're in Sector 3. P2. We got a podium, ladies and gentlemen. We had an awful day of racing, and I mean awfuls. Even the stuff that I don't have in this video, it really was a brutal day, guys. I was getting taken out left and right, and there was just one of the situations where there really was nothing I could do. It wasn't genuine racing incidents, it was just blatant dive bombs into turn 1. But here we go. After all that adversity overcome, we got a podium in a 1-hour mini endurance race at COTA. Quite a challenging course. One of my favorites. And here's a replay. Here's a flashback into that incident. As you can see, I'm way far ahead, and he just said, screw it. I'm here, and he was going to take me out. Well, guys, it was a brutal road today, but we eventually overcame. Got P2 at COTA in a 1-hour race. All things considered, I'm happy with that. But I hope you enjoyed my mini crash outs that I had in those incidents. And that usually doesn't happen with me all the time, but today was just one of those days I was really testing my limits. But we, nonetheless, got a result that we wanted, and we move on. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And once again, if you do like it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel, as there will be more content in the future. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.